The EDO, engineering duty only, is like a mule, no pride of ancestry and no hope of posterity. Rear Admiral Robert S. Griffin, quoted in Harold G. Bowen, Ships, Machinery, and Mossbacks. While understanding the machinery itself is important to this study, equally significant are the men who operated steam propulsion systems during the early 20th century. These engines were not at all like modern internal combustion motors found in the common automobile. Instead, they required careful operation by a number of specialized, enlisted sailors overseen by a pair of officers. Each individual sailor had a variety of tasks that ranged from managing water levels and burner configuration to operating the maze of steam valves and throttles. This was reflected by their various titles, with machinist mates, motor machinist mates, firemen, water tenders, and metalsmiths being the most prominent. For their own part, the officers overseeing these men, the engineer officer and assistant engineer officer, were charged with understanding every task that they might assign and with being able to do it themselves. As we shall see, this requirement and the structure of officer education in the mid-20th century often resulted in the engineering enlisted men, snipes, teaching their officers how to run a propulsion plant rather than the other way around. All of these individuals should be our star sources for learning about how fuel efficiency was managed in the early days of steam propulsion. Sadly, the voices of enlisted personnel are mere ghosts in the record. While a handful of autobiographical accounts exist, such as that of water tender Frederick T. Wilson's experience on the Asiatic Station between 1899 and 1901, the majority of these men were either illiterate or made no record of their experiences. Accordingly, there has been virtually no scholarly study of enlisted personnel beyond Frederick Harrod's groundbreaking 1978 study, Manning the New Navy. We therefore must rely primarily on other sources, discussed next, and supplement them with these sparse accounts wherever possible. This, plus the recorded evolution of enlisted training efforts at the National Archives, is the best option we have for understanding how these men lived and worked. Unlike those of enlisted men, the voices of mid-century officers thankfully can be found. Their accounts primarily take the form of technical submissions to the Journal of the American Society for Naval Engineers, now the Naval Engineers Journal, published since 1889. Additionally, for the early 20th century, the words of marine engineers are recorded regularly in other communications, such as the memoirs of high-ranking officers of World War II. These men were junior members of the Navy in the first decades of that century, when the turbine was revolutionizing steam propulsion. Admiral Bowen was one such officer,